everyone, and welcome to A Balancing Act, the podcast devoted to helping families navigate memory loss and dementia. I'm Kelly Burtonshaw. Let's get started. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to discuss something that families will often come face to face with as their loved one struggles with their memory and their dementia: hoarding, and the overwhelming distress that comes when someone tries to move or remove their belongings. And right at the top, I want to reframe this conversation because so often families have come to me and described hoarding behaviors as stubbornness. My dad just refuses to let things go. Or manipulation. Mom will never give anything away just to spite everyone. But more often than not, what we're actually looking at is a brain trying to protect itself. So what we're going to explore today is how dementia-related hoarding is often less about the objects themselves and more about what those objects represent to the brain. We'll talk about why belongings can become tied to memory, identity, and emotional security, why removing them can create intense distress, and how families can reduce conflict while still improving safety and stability. First and foremost, as with any changes in your loved one's behavior, please make sure to reach out to their physician and report what you're seeing. This can help everyone try to get to the bottom of what's going on, and their physician might be able to arrange for additional support, such as an occupational therapist, if needed. Secondly, I want to clarify the difference between hoarding as it pertains to persons affected by dementia versus persons affected by a hoarding disorder. A hoarding disorder is a mental health disorder, and it frequently co-occurs with depression, anxiety, and ADHD. Many people with this disorder continuously collect unneeded objects and may compulsively buy bargains no matter what they are. And unlike traditional collectors, which keep their belongings organized and proudly displayed, the hoarded items here are kept in chaotic, messy clutter that fills the home. Dementia-related hoarding is due to abnormal progressive changes to the brain. And it's not as much about acquiring things, but finding and keeping them. It often begins with a loved one's persistent rummaging through personal items in drawers and closets. They may be packing and unpacking clothes in a suitcase. Another family reported their father would be sorting and then resorting throughout the day. Another common symptom is moving belongings from place to place. Eventually, this progresses to hiding, stacking, and refusing to part with their belongings. Unfortunately, the behaviors may even progress to hoarding items no matter what state they're in. We're talking about unfinished or spoiled foods and maybe even garbage. But I want us to take a moment here to consider this. Your loved one has no control over these behaviors. Dementia always drives the bus. I'm going to invite you to think of any dementia-related hoarding behavior is not a problem that needs to be cleaned up, but a communication of unmet needs. For some loved ones living with cognitive decline, saving objects becomes an active defense mechanism against confusion and fear. Because as memory begins to weaken, the brain starts searching for anchors anywhere it can find them. And that loss of trust in memory creates anxiety. Anxiety changes behavior. The brain begins compensating. Instead of relying entirely on organizing things internally, the person starts relying on the environment itself. Placement becomes memory. Visibility becomes security. Stability becomes attached to these physical objects because objects feel permanent when memory no longer does. This is where I often describe to families what I call a kind of scaffolding process. When a building weakens, scaffolding is placed around it to stabilize the structure. In a very similar way, some loved ones begin unconsciously building physical scaffolding around cognitive decline. Objects are that scaffolding. The other reason that these objects can become so emotionally powerful is that memory itself is deeply physical. I know we often think of memory as something abstract, right? Something happening in our brain. But our memory is heavily connected to sensation, touch, weight, texture, and visual familiarity. And when dementia begins affecting these memory pathways, physical objects can start to become touchstones. Simply holding that object says, "This is real. This belongs to me. I still know this." This is also why families are so often very shocked by the intensity of their loved one's response when an item is removed. For the family, it's simply clearing up, removing the clutter. For your loved one, this experience is having something taken from them when the brain is already struggling to consistently retrieve information from their environment about what is going on around them. The goal I'm talking about here is also to not simply remove the behavior either. The goal I'm aiming for is to become curious. Seek to understand what problem the behavior is trying to solve for a fearful brain. I want us to take a small pause together. These conversations can bring up a lot, I know. And if what you're hearing feels helpful, I hope you'll take a moment to hit that follow button. It's a simple act that helps me keep bringing you new stories, insights, and encouragement to help lighten your load, even if it's just a little. And if the platform you listen to this podcast on allows reviews and ratings, please share your experience. This moves us up on the podcast lists, and that's how we can reach more families and provide the support they need. There's another way to show your support, through a donation. Just look for the Buy Me a Coffee link in today's show notes. This helps us keep the mic on and the episodes coming. Thank you so much for listening and for being part of this community. I want to give you as wide a lens as possible when it comes to dementia-related hoarding, because it is a complex behavior. And there can be a lot of things going on behind it. For example, physical objects can act as a protective barrier. A cluttered environment may actually feel more stable to a person because it changes less. The brain no longer has to constantly search, recall, or recognize information when their physical surroundings protect it from having to use diminishing abilities. There is also an out-of-sight, out-of-mind worry element in all of this. Your loved one is likely forgetting where things are, where they put things. So for them, if something disappears from sight, it effectively disappears forever. Having that constant visual access is a form of reassurance. Another layer in all this involves your loved one's identity itself. One of the cruelest parts of dementia is that it slowly disrupts the sense of self. The person begins losing access not only to their memories, but to the internal narrative that tells them who they are. Just think about that for a minute. Gradually, losing how you recognize yourself. And that experience creates enormous psychological vulnerability. So, objects in their environment begin filling that gap. Their belongings hold their story. While families approach cleaning with practical intentions, the loved one may experience the removal as losing a part of themselves. And that emotional reflex can become so strong that loved ones begin pushing away the very people trying to help them. And that's why we need a different framework. If we approach hoarding entirely as a cleaning problem, we're going to increase distress. But if we recognize the behavior as a communication, a compensation, and cognitive protection, our responses become far more effective and compassionate. It means understanding the difference between unnecessary clutter and emotionally protective clutter. Modern neuropsychological approaches to hoarding are increasingly moving away from aggressive removal strategies. The goal here is to reduce distress while preserving identity, familiarity, and dignity. And here are just a few things you can start with. Instead of rapidly clearing entire rooms, families often do better with their loved one when they reduce gradually and collaboratively. When it's possible, involving your loved one in decisions helps preserve their sense of autonomy and reduces that feeling that things are being taken away without control. Some families also benefit from moving away from the battle surrounding the preservation of everything and toward preserving selected memory and emotional anchors, curating what I call memory boxes. This helps shift the focus from getting rid of everything to intentionally protecting the most meaningful mementos and objects and storing them in a labeled, easy-to-access container. Consistency plays a major role here. Keeping important items in the same location every day reduces cognitive demand and lowers that panic when your loved one's memory fails. And one of the most overlooked strategies is simply understanding your loved one's patterns. Not every unusual behavior requires immediate correction. If something's not creating danger, preserving emotional stability becomes more important than enforcing a tidy environment. But anything creating a fire hazard, a fall risk, sanitation concerns, blocked pathways or access points, those need to be addressed. As you probably know, caregiving requires constantly weighing which situations truly require their intervention and which situations simply require tolerance. And finally, and probably most importantly, caregivers need permission to stop trying to win every battle. Temporary acceptance helps protect that trust between you and your loved one, and it will ultimately reduce unnecessary conflict. Now, this is not giving up. This is recognizing that dementia care is not about creating perfect. If you have any questions about this topic or comments to share, please message me on our Facebook page. The link is in the show notes. I'm here to help. And if you know someone else who may benefit from this episode, please share away. And as always, as you face these challenges, give yourself this grace. No one is perfect at this. No one. You're doing the best you can. You're doing it from a place of love. And that is enough. I'm Kelly Burdenshaw, and it was my pleasure spending time with you today. Please, keep in touch.
Hi, I'm Peggy Wright, editor and producer of this podcast. We know that juggling your loved one's care while trying to manage your own life can truly become a balancing act. We want to help you as you navigate this journey by offering our support. You can reach out to us anytime by going to our Facebook page to ask questions, leave comments for Kelly, or talk with her one-on-one by setting up a chat. The link is in the show notes. And you can find us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you hear, please take a moment to rate and review so we can continue to provide relevant content. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for listening today.